puppet. He's a real person. That's why they're trying to kill him. Legacy mainstream media just ignores the fact that America is going bankrupt like crazy. It's like at a rate that is unprecedented. A bonfire of nonsense regulations would be epic. Shallow empathy is caring about criminals. Deep empathy is caring about the victims of the criminals. And how can America be the greatest country in the world and we don't even have safe streets? This is so crazy. Yeah. I've had some exposure to government spending because SpaceX does have a lot of government contracts. There's a lot of work for NASA and for DoD, Intel, and whatnot. And so I've actually seen just the level of waste that happens. And if you talk to people in the government, they actually agree. Yes, this is very wasteful and inefficient. And I'm like, well, why don't we do something about it? But really, in order to do something about it, it has to be a mandate from the top. And if the president is, if we have a great president like Donald Trump, who is willing to make major changes, and it's difficult because the system will fight you. The system is not going to be like, oh yeah, no, totally, we're totally happy being smaller. that will not be like the sort of antibody reaction of the system will be quite severe. I don't think it's going to be. They're not going to like it basically. But you have to have that mandate from the president. And we need a real president, not a puppet, The thing that scares the system, that scares the machine, is that Donald Trump is not a puppet. He's a real person, And he's not beholden to anyone. And that's why you see sort of, that they're trying to kill him, And I mentioned as a joke, I meant it as a joke, that no one's even bothering to try to kill Kamala, because there's no point. There's no point. Just get another puppet, So I'm not suggesting someone should try to kill her. It's pointless. But I'm just saying, I'm just making an observation. Nobody's bothered. Why is that? Because it doesn't matter. Yeah, assassinating a puppet is pointless. So, yeah. I built some companies that do a lot of useful things, and as a result, the stock's worth a lot. So that's kind of what happens. It's like, But in terms of personal expenditures, I do not live a particularly, I don't have like a yachts or islands or anything like that. I just work, So. Like if we don't do something about the debt, it's going to be like this is like for some reason just the legacy mainstream media just ignores the fact that America is going bankrupt like crazy. It's like at a rate that is unprecedented, and the reality is that all government spending is taxation. So people think, well, there's government spending and taxation are somehow separate, but they're not. All government spending is taxation because the deficit is what results in inflation. And inflation is a de facto tax because it causes all prices to rise and makes people trying to just live their lives have a lot of difficulty. But inflation throughout history has been used as a pernicious tax because it's like it's 1 degree removed, so people don't feel it directly. They sort of and then the politicians will try to blame it on something else, but it's all about government spending. Government spending is what drives inflation. So the key is we've got to reduce the government spending, and if we don't, we're going to go bankrupt as a country. End of story.
And this is a silly question, but when you cut the government spending and you have a stack of all these deregulations, can you live stream on X and use not a flamethrower and burn that into the ground?
Yeah. Great idea. Yeah. I think a bonfire of nonsense regulations would be epic. Yeah. And sometimes people are concerned, like, well, what if there's some regulation that's actually really important, and we get rid of that, and say, well, you know what? We'll put it right back. Problem solved. So, Biden, for example, had that electric vehicle summit at the White House 6 months after getting inaugurated, and specifically excluded Tesla, even though Tesla makes more electric cars than ever. Yeah, it was not cool. And then credited GM with driving the electric vehicle revolution. And in that was a second event. And then in that quarter, GM shipped 26 electric cars, and Tesla shipped 300,000. So I'm like, and Tesla's at this point about 140,000 people. It's like there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from 140,000 people working hard to make great electric cars. To be sort of cold-shouldered like that for no reason, it's like, what's the deal? That was wrong. So, and then there was like that crazy thing where SpaceX competed for the rural broadband initiative, which, and by the way, I'm actually generally against subsidies and incentives. Like we should let taxpayers keep their money, is my opinion. But they had this like $42 billion thing. And we competed, and we won, and we would have actually been able to supply a lot of Starlink terminals to the states that were affected by the hurricanes, and they revoked the award. It's messed up. Like why? And then to date, that $42 billion program, total number of citizens that have received broadband from that $42 billion allocation is 0. Now that's, if you want to see the $42 billion for 0, I would call that waste. Yeah, that's waste. That is not a good use of money. There was also a big government initiative, I think $7 billion, something like that, for a nationwide network of electric superchargers. And I think they had made like 10. And I'm like, this is the most egregious waste of money. And there's so many situations like that. So, it just goes like bureaucrats and consultants, and nothing gets done, and it's wasting your money, which is crazy. So, what I'm saying is like there's the opportunity to reduce government waste is actually, I think, easy because there's so much of it. It's not like they just don't care about your money, which is messed up, and so. So I think the Department of Government Efficiency is going to face a target-rich environment for reducing cost. The sort of good interpretation of the woke movement is that we want to have empathy for our fellow human beings. And of course we want to have empathy for our fellow humans. I strongly believe we should care about humanity and we should care about the future. But we need to have empathy that is deep, not shallow. Shallow empathy is caring about criminals, but deep empathy is caring about the victims of the criminals, And so, why do we have, repeat violent offenders released on the streets, often with no bail? It's crazy. And they prey upon people, innocent people, and then our streets are not safe. And how can America be the greatest country in the world and we don't even have safe streets? This is so crazy. I hope I'm not being too optimistic, but because I'm a naturally optimistic person, obviously. But I do feel as though that there's a shift in the national mindset and a shift to just common sense and not believing everything the media tells you. And I think actually in the U.S. people are starting to realize that the legacy media is just a propaganda machine, and in Europe they still believe the news. So we got to work on Europe. They still think the news is real, but here thanks to X and just people being, I think, maybe a bit more aware and having an actual free speech constitutional amendment has helped Americans, understand what is actually real. I do find it remarkable, like just how sort of coordinated the legacy media is in their talking points. It's absurd. Kudos to those who put together the compilations of where all of the talking heads will say the same thing, word for word. Yeah, and they'll say the exact same thing, and you know. But I mean, I think the propaganda is not even good, frankly. It's not even entertaining. And you know, so you know, a week before the Biden-Trump debate, you know, every media organization was saying that Biden Sharp's attack. You know, the exact same words: Sharp's attack, over and over again. Then it became obvious to the public that he was indeed not as sharp as attack. But then immediately the legacy media pivoted to knifing Biden and anointing a successor. So we see this over and over again, and yeah. So anyway, but that's why we need to have the voice of the people, and that's you know why I felt it was necessary to acquire Twitter and you know. Like the whole point of acquiring Twitter was to restore the voice of the people. So. And it's important to note that while the far left activists that used to control Twitter obviously did extreme censorship of voices on the right, there has been no censorship of voices on the left. You know, they suspended a sitting president. You know, Twitter suspended a sitting president, which is insane. But there's been no suspension or censorship or shadow banning or anything of anyone on the left. So, you know, it's a level playing field. But I think that the reason that the sort of far left activists want unanimity in all social media platforms and in all legacy media is that their ideas do not stand the light of day. That is the reason. They actually don't stand up. And so unless everyone is parroting the same thing, their ideas will fail.